We even charged it this time so it won't die.
Perfect.
Last time I charged it in the morning, it didn't hold the charge.
The things you learn.
I know.
Welcome to the third episode.
Okay, time out.
Right into it.
You just went from...
I figured it would go from, you just cut that all out and it would just start.
But you just had this look on your face like you're ready to switch into podcast mode, or...
Shouldn't I have?
You have.
Okay.
But you were just like, okay.
Welcome to the Tunnel Vision Podcast. I'm just kidding. Okay, so episode 3 of Tunnel Vision Podcast. Welcome. It's been a little while since we've seen you guys.
Yeah. To the viewers, maybe not, because they're going to be watching it in probably batches.
Yeah, but good Christmas?
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Yeah, it was
Everything's good. More life. Keep living.
Yeah, it was beautiful weather too. Now it's just absolutely freezing. So
yeah,
I mean, at least we got to have all our family time and holidays and stuff in with some nice weather.
Yeah.
Good excuse to stay home.
It was crazy. I remember even a few years back, it was like minus 40 during New Year's.
Yeah.
Like watching fireworks, and this time it was like +1.
Oof.
That was crazy to me.
Fireworks in minus 40 is crazy.
I know.
It's crazy that they work.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll, I mean, if it's your first time here, our podcast, Tunnel Vision, basically we're talking to athletes, finding out about their journeys, the skills that they got through their athletic career, the skills that they had that made their career successful or not successful, just kind of figuring out, the ins and outs of athletes and seeing where it's taken them. So today, for the other 3 that we've done, for the most part, we focused on student athletes. But today, our guest is Dallas Jackson. He wasn't a student athlete, but a pro hockey player for a long time, and now he's a golf pro. So we're going to learn a little bit about him and his journey and, kind of where it's taken him so far.
Yeah.
Right on.
Welcome, Dallas.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be on with you guys, and looking forward to it, yeah.
Right on.
So tell us a little bit about, like, the start of your hockey career. So how did it start as a kid? Like, was it something that you always wanted to do? Was it something you found later? Just walk us through kind of how you chased your dream.
Like most young Canadians, I think, when I was 3 years old, I loved hockey. I mean, a lot of us do, and I grew up in a small town with 3 older siblings, so for me, it was pretty early on. I was pretty competitive and pretty into hockey because I had people in front of me who were already playing organized sports, and when I was going out on the outdoor rink, I was playing against people that were just pushing me around, and my brothers weren't exactly the most, giving me the puck and telling me to score kind of guys, so you had to kind of work for it, and so I think that's where it started for me. It was literally just being a little kid and a really, really, I would say, kind of aggressive and pushing family from my siblings. And they were really good athletes, and they were tough. When I played sports, like I said, as a kid, it wasn't, holding hands. It was crying. It was getting pushed around. It was, and I learned how to love that side of it. And I think for me, moving through a small town, that allowed me to move from the small town onto a bigger city and thrive in that kind of atmosphere because, if you're from a small town like some of us are, the competition's not very good in a small town, and you don't really get a chance to really see where you stack up when you're a kid, and you go out and you kind of dominate and you think you're this great player, and then you go on and you see what these other guys are like. And for me, my time growing up in Edson, I always thought I was pretty good and I always loved it, but I wasn't great. I wasn't a great player as a kid. I really thought I was, and as time moved on, I went into St. Albert, played some midget AAA, and kind of got my feet wet that way, and kind of a little bit more of a watched environment where, WHL scouts are watching you, things like that. And I was able to have really good success there and basically propel myself into a WHL career, which I was undrafted in the WHL. I was undrafted in the NHL as well. It's kind of the path you take, I guess, when you are from a small town too, because you're not like Connor McDavid where you get noticed when you're 8 years old.
Yeah.
This he's going to play in the NHL when he's 10. Everyone's talking about that. Like, I'm still playing with toy trucks when I'm 10 in a small town. I have no idea, right?
Yeah.
And so you move on to these higher levels, and then you start to learn, a lot about where you stack up and the discipline it takes to kind of get on to these next levels, which I never had. I did get pushed a lot from my siblings, but I never had coaching and structure where it was like, you need to work on this and this and this. And a lot of that was attitude. It wasn't just skills, right? Like I have always had pretty good skills, but attitude-wise, I needed to work, and I didn't know that because I was playing against kids where it didn't necessarily. I didn't need the demeanor to be able to beat them. I could be upset and go out and win.
Yeah.
And and I could take a stupid penalty and I wasn't getting sat or whatever that was.
Yeah.
And then you get up there and you start to realize that, you know, that kind of, especially in a team environment, that attitude, it really hurts the team and yourself, and people see it from everywhere, right? So I needed to work on myself as a man more than I needed as a player, and that's what I feel like really helped me going through pro. Was I learned how to become more of a man and learn how to be like, you know, you screwed up, this is your fault, and to be able to go, okay.
Ownership behind it all.
You know, and for me, that was huge. So for me as a kid to a pro was like a bratty, whiny, you know, everything should be given to me kid, to like learning how to accept roles, responsibilities, because that's the other thing, your role changes. Yeah. You know, every guy who goes into the NBA, for example, they probably think, I'm going to be putting up 30 a night, I'm going to be the best. Yeah. And then they realize one day, wait a minute, like I'm a bench guy, I'm going to be a bench guy. But the sooner you can accept that and pat the starter, you know, on the butt and be like, great job, your career's longer, you learn more about yourself and you help your team, which I think is a big thing in team sports, which I learned a lot from playing pro for sure.
Yeah, I think it's when you talk about growing as a man or as a woman as well, when you have to mature and take criticism, like we always talk about trusting your coaches, their intentions. So trusting a coach's intentions and understanding that when they give you that type of criticism, I think that's something that, you know, trial by fire and steel sharpens steel, that like when you get up to that higher level, if you don't have that, you're simply going to get replaced. Like you said, you're in a very watchable environment. They're not just in St. Albert watching, they're in all of the cities, they're in all of the across North America looking to find a guy to replace Dallas, right? If Dallas messes up. And if they have somebody that's not doing what they want to do, they're looking for Dallas to replace that guy. So 100%. That maturity, I think, to be able to trust those coaches' intentions and, you know, to take the criticism is like the number one skill that athletes have that a lot of people don't have, that make them successful in life later on.
That's right. That's the difference between, other than your first line in the NHL, every one of those players, in my opinion, is replaceable by somebody else. The difference is they learn how to do that stuff. They learn how to take criticism. They learn how to be a fourth line guy when they think they're a second line guy, and eventually they are a second line guy. But that's part of, like you said, the learning, where I've seen a million good hockey players, better than me, better than most, that never went anywhere because they think everyone's against them. They think that what a coach tells them, like, you got to back check. They're like, well, what's your problem with me? He's like, I don't got a problem with you, man. I just want you to back check for the team. But this guy's taking offense to everything because he's never been taught, like I said, like I wasn't taught necessarily at a young age, that, you know, this isn't about you, it's about the team. And when I say this to you, I'm saying it to help you. But it's not always, like you said, and you get to a higher level, it's not gift wrapped. It's not, oh, hey, you should really try harder to do this next time. No, that's not how they talk to you. But you got to be, like you said, you got to be a man and be like, okay, he's just trying to help. It might have been something that he said that might have hurt someone's feelings, but at the end of the day, like, you know, you're in a professional environment, and if you can't take, you know, criticism, like you said, the next guy's coming in, and they're coming in because there's a million of them. They're overseas, they're here, they're everywhere, man. Like, especially now in sports, the leagues are growing like crazy, right? Like, guys are coming from everywhere. And the teams that weren't good 10 years ago, well, now they're giving the dream team, you know, a 10-point game. Whereas before it was like they could go out and shoot like this and win the game. But now, like, in hockey is getting crazy with how good these. You watch the World Juniors, Canada won it, but they weren't even, like, they weren't supposed to medal this year. You know? And, like, before it was like, oh, yeah, we're going to win. We could pick 3 teams and go win all 3 medals. And so now with that competition, it's about a mentality at these high levels. A lot of people don't see that. They watch the, you know, these skills and stuff, but they don't see the mentality behind these guys who are constantly bringing it every night, right?
I actually had this talk with Dexter Janke, a football guy, plays in the CFL. And one of the things that I remember he was really preaching to some of the kids that he was training was that you have to be a pro before you're a pro. And how you hold yourself prior to actually reaching your goals and dreams is going to be very consistent to how you're going to be treated once you are a pro. And I thought that was like huge because there's lots of kids that maybe might not be running a sideline as fast as they can, but when their mentality is, once I make it as a pro, then I'll flip that switch. And there's no automatic switch. You really have to really embrace that lifestyle and mentality at an early age and actually do all those things as if you're a pro prior to actually becoming a pro in order to get to that point.
100%. That's how they talk about engraving it in your DNA, like a work ethic. But I was talking to Kier about this before, and it's not always about the things that are on the court or on the ice or whatever it is. It's about, showing up on time, dressing right, all these things that you literally engrave this as lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So now it's not about just, oh yeah, I show up and I work hard. Yeah, but do you do this stuff all the time? Because that stuff eventually carries you into your play. 100%. I've seen it where guys, they have good stretches and bad stretches, but, they're out eating Subway and whatever else. They're not really thinking about anything other than playing. They're not thinking about getting 8 hours sleep. Yeah. And then, stretching in the morning, doing all these little things that Buddy's doing. And Buddy wasn't even a great player. But now he's in the NHL or in the NBA, and you're like, what? I was way better than that guy. But he learned. He learned how to be a pro, like you said. Like, before he was ever there, he was out shooting jumpers when practice was over. Yeah. Or whatever, working on his cardio, whatever it was. Yeah. And I think that's, at the pro level, that's literally the number one thing that separates everyone is a mentality. It's not skill. There's a million skilled players.
Exactly. I think that's, sorry to cut you off, but I think that's actually, I think we can all relate, and you even said this, like, we know players that didn't reach their potential because they weren't as coachable as they should have been. Mm-hmm. And that's what prevented them from getting to next level up, because of the ego that you've talked about. And skill will always kind of get you there, but then if you're only there to do one aspect of it and not the recovery aspect, nutrition aspect, everything's going to slowly fall apart.
100%. And you see that a lot too. And even just mentally being able to bring it every night, like, that's a state of mind that some people know how to get into a state of mind to play, and they know how to turn that off and then do the right things after. Yeah. But if you can't do that stuff all the time, how are you just supposed to turn that on all the time? Yeah. It's hard. It's especially at those levels of sports, right? Because every single person out there is, 90% of them are bringing everything they got all the time. And if you're the one guy who's not bringing it 100% of the time, like, someone comes and watches you one game and they see you play terrible one game, they go, if that's what he can do in a game, I don't want him. Yeah. If it's one game, I don't want him. Because who knows how many times he's going to be doing this. Yeah. I don't care if you got a hat trick. That Buddy's, he's not moving his feet. He's coughing pucks so up left and right. Like, we can't have that, because high levels are built on consistency. Yeah. Right?
The higher you get up to, I mean, like, you're talking about professional players where they dedicate their life to be able to excel in the sport. The coaches, it's their job too, right? So if you have a part that's not working, you're going to replace that part as quickly as you can. You're not going to let that bring the whole engine down, right?
100%.
So a lot of people think like, oh, coach is out to get me. No, coach is selfish. They're out for their own job and their own job security. If you think about how many high-paying coaching jobs there are across all sports in Canada, there's so few comparatively to the number of people that aspire to be that coach. You have to be able to perform. And playing at the university level and then jumping to the university level as a coach, I totally started to understand, like, in the first 6 months of me coaching, I was like, man, my coaches probably hated me because I didn't do all of these things that I'm asking of these players now. And then the dots kind of start to connect, right? So the higher up you get, and like I said, the more intense it gets. I mean, it's like that for film guys. It's like that for strength and conditioning coaches and nutritionists. It's not just the players.
100%.
But those are the guys that are in the spotlight, and those are the guys that talk about it the most, right?
And especially when you got your attitude and your tunnel vision going, you don't think about, that maybe the coach is under the gun right now. We lost 6 in a row.
Yeah, the bad kind of tunnel vision.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, you're thinking about me, like, how am I supposed to do my job? Yeah. While you're not thinking about, why am I getting sat these last couple of games? Well, the team hasn't won in 6 games. So it might be about you, but it might be about him just being like, whoa, like, he feels like he's got the spotlight on him, and then you feel like you got it on you. So there's a big disconnect sometimes where no one really understands where people are coming from. And I feel like that's a huge part of sports now. As it's changing, it's almost like coaches have to tell players where they're coming from now. Like, we used to get healthy scratch and then be like, hey, coach, can I talk to you? No. Whereas now it's like he has like an obligation to explain to this individual what's going on. Yeah. And because players have a lot more pull than they used to have too, right? Like, you look at, for example, LeBron, like, he can get coaches fired. He can get entire management staff fired as a player. Yeah. Like, that is, to me, that's crazy, because when I was there, it was like no one was bigger than the team, ever. Yeah. But it's good in a way, because these guys are kind of opening doors for more people to come in and kind of create an environment that's like just positive, which I think is a good thing in ways, but I do think that in ways it's reflecting in play in higher level sports now where they're getting a little softer in ways too. If if you watch the NBA in regular season, watch some games where you're like, you guys take Ambien before the game or what? Like, and I'm not trying to just, pick them out, but it's the same with hockey. Like, there used to be so much hitting. Yeah. Now it's like you see one big hit in a game and then all of a sudden there's a fight and then there's no more hitting.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like, so the culture's changing, which I think is a good thing too. And I think that a lot of these young guys, man, like they're getting so much money so early that they have so much power. And it's a different dynamic than when I played, for sure.
Yeah, you're seeing it shift like into the player's hand a lot more, right? Because they are the product. They are the ones that generate the revenue. No one's tuning in to watch the coach. No one's tuning 100%. In to watch the trainers, right? So the player holds so much power. And in a league like the NBA, one guy can dominate a game front to back and put his stamp on it defensively, offensively.
Yeah.
If you look at like football, a quarterback can kind of do that, but he's got to throw it to someone else, and that person's got to catch.
Yeah.
He's got to have an O-line that blocks for him.
For sure.
Right? And baseball, you might have a guy that can smack it out of the park, but if a pitcher knows like where to put that ball,
just pitch around him.
Can neutralize one guy. Right, there you go, right?
Walk him and strike the next three guys out.
In basketball, you have so much power as an athlete.
You do.
And there's a lot of like that stuff carrying off the court now. We have a lot more access to behind the scenes life and like what people are doing. They've got their Instagrams going and that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's a lot more connected. People are there to watch that, right?
Marketing themselves.
For sure.
Right.
So we talked about you moving from Edson into St. Albert to play hockey, and then WHL was next. So how did that happen? And tell us a bit about that.
So I had a really good year when I played midget AAA. My last year midget, I was supposed to go play junior A in Olds. I went down there. I was in like a small house. There's 3 of us living in it off the team. Like 2 of us were sharing a room. And I was like, no, this isn't for me. So I went back to St. Albert. I played my last year and then fortunately just had a really good year. And so I had a couple WHL teams talk to me. And then how it works in the WHL, though, is a team has, I believe it's a 50-man roster. They can list you. Once they list you, you have to go. So even if you're not drafted, it's like you're part of this team now. You can't go anywhere else. So Red Deer did that for me. I went into Red Deer. I was, pretty good player at the time, and I just made the team out of camp kind of thing. And then learning experience. Lost like 14 pounds the first month because you're skating every day. You're not in high school eating McDonald's, right? And so you learn a lot about like, whoa, like we're playing every day. Like we're doing workouts every day. Like this is different. We're playing 72 games a year, not 30. Like this is, and so for me, it took a little bit to kind of get used to playing all the time and get used to kind of like playing like a pro, right? Because I didn't know how to do that. Yeah. I knew how to show up and be like, I'm going to go score a bunch of goals and have a good time. And then now it was like the pressure's on every game. Like there's video you're watching on all these teams and there's, all these different things that you have to do. And for me, I wasn't in the position that I wanted to be in at the time, thinking like, I should be on the power play, I should be doing this and doing that. And so for me, the Red Deer experience was great because I had a Sutter as a coach. And if you guys know anything with them, like they're tough customers. I really liked them. So it was Brian Sutter, and he was an awesome coach, really old school guy, like, wasn't afraid to kind of cut you down. And so it was good for me because I learned a lot from him. And then I ended up getting bounced around a bit. I ended up in Prince George. So if you know anything about Prince George and WHL.
Great city.
Yeah, and you are not near anything.
Yeah.
Like the closest game is like 6.5 hours away.
Oh, wow.
And so our road schedule is just stupid, man. Like we're driving down to the States, playing a game in Spokane, going back up to Vancouver, going back down to play Seattle, and then coming home in 3 days. Jeez. And so like our team was just getting slaughtered too. Like we were brutal. Yeah. And so like it was some tough times there, but that's where I kind of I had a really good time there because I kind of learned how to block everything else out about losing, about the travel, about all the stuff, and be like, how am I going to be my best player this game?
Right.
And I learned a ton about myself in Prince George, and I became a really good player. And that's when I started getting talked to by NHL teams. I mean, we were losing 5-2 every game. But my thing was, if I can go out and I get scored on, maybe chip in offensively, play well, things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
Stay positive, keep your head down. Because when you're losing, I mean, I think we must have had 56 losses that year, 72 games. Wow. It was insane. Like, we were so bad, right? And so to be able to kind of learn how to control what you could control for the first time in my life, where I was like, I'm not going to get upset about losing 5-2. I'm going to worry about what I'm doing. And I'm going to go out, and if, the team's getting lit up 6-0, I'm going to play every shift like it's a tie game. Because for me, that's what's going to get me where I want to go. Obviously, we're not having the season that we want to have.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's when I really started to understand how to kind of be a pro and kind of take matters into my own hands and not worry about, I passed that to you and you didn't score. Well, that doesn't matter, because if you're worried about that stuff, then all that stuff just gets wound up in your head and your attitude gets bad. And so from there, I ended up getting invited out to Toronto, went to their camp, played a little bit in the East Coast, and then for 4 years after that, I played in the American League, mostly for the Islanders farm team. And that was a great experience. I mean, I played in the American League the year of the lockout, so we had all those NHL guys kind of funneled down and play against all them one year. And so the league was really good. But I mean, I'd already played against them with all these guys before too, right?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like as big of a factor anymore. Once you play with enough of these guys, it's kind of just like whatever. There's only maybe 2 guys in my life that I met where I was kind of like, oh man, And that's when I went to Chicago, and there was like Kane and Taves walking around after they won the cup.
Cool.
And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty sweet. I'm like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Like I get to play with and against these guys. They're at the time like the best players in the world too. Yeah. And the atmosphere was so relaxed because they won. And that's one thing you start to learn too, is you go to different teams and success breeds positivity.
For sure.
It's crazy. Like you go to a team who had a bad year and the camp is like, it's like Hitler's running camp, because they're like, we got to be better than we were last year.
Yeah.
Like you're brutal, what's going on, bag skate. You go to Chicago after they won the cup, it was like, who has the best saucer pass? Like just the atmosphere, everyone's so happy to be there, they're all glowing, they're a good team. And so it makes you wonder a little bit, like, what if these teams that were doing bad just kind of slowed their roll on these players? And because sometimes you're just gripping the stick too tight because of all the stuff, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, right? And I feel like for me that was a big learning experience to see like what a championship team and atmosphere looked like. And for me that was probably one of the coolest things I ever did, was go there, because I got to learn so much from just being around guys, right?
No kidding.
Yeah.
So when you went from like WHL to the ECHL, and you did that undrafted, so after it happened, like you finished out WHL, didn't get drafted, how did your what happened to your mindset? Like, was that something that you were really set on, that you wanted to get drafted and go that route, or how did things change when maybe it didn't go quite as planned?
For me it was kind of good because I don't think I ever had a plan. So when I wasn't drafted, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't looking to be drafted. I just knew I wanted to play. And I think that, for me, kind of propelled me, because it's not easy when you're not drafted to play at high levels. It's just, you can be equally or just better than someone who's drafted, but they're going to play them. They've invested money in them.
For sure. They
don't want to look bad either. They don't want to be like, well, I drafted this guy in the first round. We got Buddy coming from Edson.
Right.
And he's taking a spot. Well, I'm going to get fired. Right. So for me, that was a big thing, was I never really thought about not being drafted. I just thought about I'm just going to keep playing because that's what I want to do. And it worked out because I had a really bad injury when I was 20 in junior. And so I could either got surgery or rehabbed it. And I dislocated my shoulder. I said, well, what's the timelines? Buddy goes, well, if you get surgery, you're done for the year. It was my last year of junior. I was like, well, I can't do that then, because if I'm done for the year, I'm done playing hockey forever. Yeah. So I just rehabbed it, came back, and I think that kind of, again, like the tunnel vision, I'm going to just do the best I can, and I want to play hockey. It kind of propelled me into getting invited to NHL camps and stuff, and then from there, just being like, I'm going to prove that I'm better than what you got in your system, so I can stick around and progress. And luckily for me, I fell into a pretty good situation where I did. I outplayed a few guys in Bridgeport for the Islanders farm team, and next thing you know, I was a power play guy and all this stuff, and I wasn't an NHL drafted guy, right? So for me, it was good because you see these wins, one out of every 100 guys who ends up being really good in the NHL coming this route. Yeah. But there's so many that could be. Yeah. Honestly, for me, it's a big thing where these scouts and management don't want to look bad. So they give these guys so many chances, Puljujärvi from Edmonton, for example. Don't want to hate on the guy, because I don't really know the guy. I don't have any ill will for the guy at all. But they just throw him into the NHL and be like, be good. And he wasn't ready. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, you're a first rounder, be good. Well, he's not ready to play but yet they keep putting him out on the ice, and then now they blame it on him.
Yeah.
Be like, well, you weren't good enough. But, well, what do you mean he wasn't? Just because he's a first rounder doesn't mean you can't play 4 years in the American League, man. Everyone develops differently. Yeah. But if you are a first rounder, they'll give you chance after chance after chance until eventually they're just like, wow.
Yeah. They put that expectation there, and if you can't match it, then...
For sure. But the good news is you get the opportunities that come with it. Because it's not even just that organization that'll do it for you. It's the next one, too. It's, usually I see guys go to about 3-4 teams who were supposed to be good that weren't until they're finally like, okay, this guy doesn't have it. Yeah. But they get so much opportunity. If you're drafted in the first 3 rounds in NBA, NHL, whatever it is, you already have, basically it's a business, right? So you've already invested money in something. For sure, you're not just going to invest money in something and then be like, cut her off, right? Like, you're going to give him every chance he can. Yeah. And so I feel like that's a big thing for me was you got to be as good and then better. And you got to outwork these guys, and you got to be a better teammate than these guys. And so for me, it was really positive, though, because it taught me a lot about what I had to do just to stick around, right? So I really enjoyed that.
So from American League, the next step was playing in Sweden. So he went overseas and played for his last year. So what led to that decision, which eventually led to retiring? What was the kind of driving force and behind that?
Well, I think it's like a lot of guys who play in the American League for, a few years. It's a really hard league. Like, you're bussing, you're playing 72 games, you're playing against a bunch of guys who are trying to make the NHL, so it's really physical. And you kind of hit a point where you're like, I don't really want to do that anymore.
The jungle.
I don't really want to play 3 games in 3 nights 13 times a year. Yeah. I'm kind of getting, my back hurts, and so I'm like, I want to go somewhere where I can, experience some culture, play less games, kind of get something out of it, get paid to travel, basically. And a lot of guys, when I talk to them now, they wish they'd done it earlier in their careers because you do get bounced around so much in the American League. It's a tough league. And so...
It's got to be tough to... it's easy to look back and say, I wish I would have done it earlier, but in the moment, everyone's thinking, you're going to make a chance, right?
You're going to make it. Yeah. Everyone's going to make it in their minds, right? Yeah. And, I mean, if you weren't going to make it in your mind, you probably weren't going to be there in the first place.
Yeah.
So for me, I hit the point base where I was like, and you hit the age, too, right? You hit your mid-20s where your perspective gets different than it was when you were 22. Like, you're not thinking of it as much, right in front of you. Now you're starting to think like, okay, so I'm missing time at home with my family. I've been away from home since I was 15.
There's more to this.
There's more to this. Yeah. And so if I can get some experience in this, I was kind of at the time I was debating whether I was even going to play or not at that year. But I was like, you know what? Sweden sounds great. I'd like to go experience it. And I did. I really enjoyed it there too. And like I said, it was like nobody hit. So you go over there and like you throw a head fake and everyone just turns the other way. I'm like, this is nice. Like, no one's hitting. Like, you can kind of go and just have fun a little bit in this. And that's one thing too is you realize that you haven't been having a lot of fun lately. Yeah. And it hits you and you're like, man, like I love hockey, but we don't play for fun. Right. Not even in practice. Like you do something in practice that's like a fun play, they blow the whistle and they go, what are you doing? So it's like I kind of got to the point where I was like, I'm ready for something for the next chapter. Problem is, when you're a pro athlete, what is the next chapter?
For sure.
I never went to school. I never even thought about what I wanted to do after until I was in my mid-20s. And then you're like, wait a minute. Like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know what else I want to do, right?
Yeah.
And so that was definitely an interesting transition coming back and being like, all right, so now this is like the real world. Because it's not really a real world when you play pro sports, right? Like, it's just a different bubble that you're in entirely. You're with your team all the time. You're getting paid. You're playing a sport for all these thousands of people, and it's kind of fun. And then all of a sudden it changes. It's like, okay, now you got to work from 8 to 4. What is 8 to 4?
Yeah.
Thought we were playing from 7:30 to 10, and then going, having something to eat.
Yeah.
But now it's different, and so for me, finding what I wanted to do next was like one of the hardest things. Just mentally, just thinking like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And so I ended up working, luckily for me, I ended up working part-time on a golf course the one summer because I was like, I miss golf. So I wanted to get out there, started playing a little bit, and I was like, man, I really miss golf, and I really was enjoying it again. So I stuck with that course for a couple years, and then this past year I decided I wanted to be in the business. I wanted to be a golf professional. So I went out, and you have to play in these tournaments. They're called PATs. It's like basically a performance test. So you have to shoot a certain score on a certain course in 2 days to pass it, and then you have to do your education. So business, teaching, whatever it is after.
Yeah.
And so for me, what I realized too is how much I miss like the competitiveness of like playing something that's like makes you nervous, and like, because I hadn't done it in a couple years, and then you get back out there and you're like, when a golf shot like really matters, how different it is. You know, like I'm sweating. I'm like, oh man, this is scary. Like,
it's not like
you know,
shotgun a beer
but
at
it's
the next
really
hole.
fun,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the fun stuff. For me, sports, it's fun to go out and laugh, but like I enjoy sports the most when it's like, let's see where we stack up.
For sure.
Like I want to try.
Me too.
You know, and some people don't get that, and you got to know your crowd too. But for me, it's not as fun as it could be if I get someone that's like, that guy knows what's going on. You know, he wants to play.
That's why you got to where you were in hockey too, right? Like there's just a certain mindset that separates like athletes from like the average person, but then elite athletes, and then, you know, like professional athletes. There's just a mindset that changes, and like when with the golfing, like I have to bring up stuff that makes this a better conversation.
Okay.
So I have
So
to.
here's what's going down. Everyone who's listening to this, they're dating.
Yeah, have been for a long time.
We can't avoid that.
Yeah, and so there's so many things I was thinking. I was like, I just want to bring these things up so that, because it makes sense. But
Bring it up.
Anytime, like he's like obsessive about stuff, like not in a like crazy, like whatever kind of way, but it's just, kind of crazy. It's everything he does it revolves. It's complete tunnel vision. It revolves around what he's learning to do. So like he taught himself how to play guitar, and it was reading guitar books, watching YouTube guitar things, listening to only music with like just an acoustic guitar or whatever he was interested in. And after hockey, tennis kind of filled that void, but he had so many injuries that he couldn't even really play anything. Like he couldn't even work out. Like he's just starting to be able to work out again because his body is so destroyed from playing hockey. But he walks around in our place like with, as soon as he decided that golf was like what he wanted to do, golf club in his hand 75% of the time at home, like
That's a bit excessive.
yeah, maybe not 75, but like a large amount of time he has a golf club in his hand, or he's tapping a ball, or we have a little
potty putt
on
the toilet.
I got him for the one year for Christmas. I got him like the long green, so he can just like putt at home.
Yeah.
Like, but that's something that I've always noticed that separated him from people that I knew were just, when he wanted to do something, he was in, all in, doing it in everything. He's always thinking about it, reading about it, whatever, and it works. Like he just gets really good, really quick at stuff. And that was like golf. It was, he had been working at the golf course for like 4 years or whatever, and
Yes, my fourth.
the only job he'd really stuck with since he finished, and knew that he loved it. And then it was like, I think I'm gonna be a golf pro. And I was like, okay. And now he's a golf pro.
It's that easy.
And he did.
No, and but you're right. I mean, I'm a little crazy about details. I always have been. Like sports, when I used to watch hockey, I could tell you like what color tape everyone had on the stick, what hand they were, you know, where they preferred shooting the puck from on the ice, like all these weird little things. And then in golf, it's cool though because it's all just you now. Like you're not worried about anything else. And so for me, it's a fun teacher because golf reveals like a state of mind about you too. If you play enough, you go out and you're playing back and like, why am I playing so bad? But really, like mentally, you're just not there, or you're upset about something, and you got to find a way to be like, oh, okay. Kind of reveals a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
And so for me, golf was a fun new avenue because it was more about the mental than the physical. Because I felt like I could hit the ball, but you know, there's a whole lot more to that game than there's 4 minutes between shots. So how do you navigate that, right? It's totally different. In hockey, it's like, get back out there.
Yeah.
You know, go use aggression to get yourself back in. You can't do that in golf, right? You gotta like zen yourself back down and hit shots. And
It's funny because like we do have so much in common, but he found golf and I found running, which kind of a similar sort of thing. Like in basketball, you make a mistake, okay, get back, play hard, defense, go get a rebound, go, do something physical to fix your mistake.
Yeah.
Normally. And which usually led to another mistake.
it can. That's controlled aggression.
It would sometimes lead to another mistake, but with golf, it's like you said, like you can't do that type of recovery. It has to be a completely different state of mind and like steps you take for improvement, and that's like running. Like running, I guess, like to a certain point I can just run faster and try and just like do that.
It's still mental.
But it's
definitely.
You can't just tell yourself
thing.
to run faster. Like that comes from.
I think that's definitely mental, because every time we had to do the 2.4 kilometer test, and I remember I ended up coming in first, came over and asked if I wanted to consider track at all. And I was like, I would never.
Yeah, I know, right?
I can't even think of just doing this for fun.
Yeah.
No.
Right?
See, and
So it takes a lot of mental strength to be able to just go out and tell yourself, I'm about to run for like 20 minutes without stopping at a certain speed.
Yeah.
and
It makes no sense to me.
When I was playing basketball, or like when I was younger and we would run for fitness, I hated it.
could not
I
see.
hated it so much. I was terrible at the beep test. Well, I wasn't terrible at the beep test. I hated the beep test though, and I wasn't as good as I should have been at the beep test. And then everyone, like so many people, running is just, it's amazing. It's all of these things. And
Runner's
I'm like, I want to,
Yeah.
yes.
What is runner's high?
Exactly.
Hacking my lungs out over here.
Yeah, so I wanted to find out. So I hated running, and I ran for a year, probably not liking it. But I was like, I'm gonna like this.
Wow.
Like eventually, I'm gonna enjoy it, and I love it now. Like not being able to run because of my knee injury is like one of the worst things about it, because I miss that mental push, that like all of it that comes with running.
is.
But it's same sort of thing. It's a different type of competition where I'm competing with me now, and like that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is, and it's fun putting yourself out there, and it's so easy to put yourself out there and make excuses and say I wasn't trying hard, right? Like everyone, like how easy is that to do and be like, yeah, but I don't really care. But like when you honestly say like I'm playing my best, I'm trying my hardest, and it's not good enough, that's good for you.
Yeah.
That pushes you, because then you actually know where you are, and you actually know, okay, I need to work. But if you constantly say like, well, yeah, but I went out last night, or and you're all constantly just being like, it doesn't matter.
If you have an excuse for anything, that just means that there's no solution to any of
Exactly.
those things.
And you're just saying that, well, I could be good, but
Yeah.
well, to me that's not fun. That's not, stacking up and truthfully like seeing where you are. Like it's scary sometimes, but it's good for you.
Yeah.
Because you can say like, or maybe you're better than you thought you were.
Yeah.
If you actually went out there and just said, no excuses, I'm laying it all on the table. And next thing you know, you're better than someone you thought has been better than you this whole time, or whatever it is, right? But excuses are definitely, they're like a disease. After a while, people just with everything.
And then spread, right?
Oh man, and then next thing you know, you're just, oh yeah, well I just do it for fun. But you want to be good. You can see they want to be good, but it's just for fun, right?
Yeah.
People just place it or word it in a way that in case they fail, then they have a way out of it.
Exactly.
Rather than really truly saying, this is what I'm doing, because they know if they are someone who makes excuses constantly, then that's not going to be able to justify why they didn't end up being able to do it.
And what did they do to the other guys? They go, oh, try hard.
Yeah.
That guy's a try hard.
For sure.
Right?
You're like, you're damn right I am. I tried my ass off and look where I got, right?
Exactly. He's a try hard. Well, it's like, yeah, man, but like, can you ever really blame someone for like wanting to see where they stack up and like really actually owning that and being like, man, I'm not that good. Well, now you can get better, right?
Yeah.
And I also think it depends on what you think is failing too. Like there are again, like kind of back to running, like one of the best things that I learned through running is I could always get better no matter how the run was going. Like I might not run a faster time today. I might not, run up that hill as cleanly as I'd like or whatever. But in my head, I'm like, okay, your body doesn't feel that good. Your legs aren't working. Get better in some other way. Work on your breathing. Work on your positive self-talk. Work on whatever it is. But today, all right, it's not a cardio day, obviously. It is, but to certain standards, it's not. So it's a mental day. It's a breathing day. It's a whatever. So there's always ways to get better. It just depends on like your mindset when you're doing it and what you think failure is, because failure is by far the best teacher.
Yeah.
By far. So like you can like fail at something while not actually fail at it. It just makes you better in the long run. You just have to find a way to let it teach you.
Exactly. And once your body is feeling better and you have that same mentality of when it wasn't feeling better, that's when you can make even bigger strides going from
absolutely
my time was this and now it's all the way up here.
Yes.
Which is crazy. So
That's a pro mentality.
Yeah.
Right? That's finding ways to be good
see,
no matter how you feel, right?
the whole conversation between the way these two were talking to each other switched the moment that they admit that they were
Because I was
dating.
lying. I felt like I was like, I'm just sitting here a liar.
That's good. If you could pick one skill, Dallas, that you learned as an athlete that has made you successful now, or that you see is going to make you successful in the future, what do you think that would be?
I would say, honestly, being a good teammate. I know it sounds like super corny to everyone, but because that's the stuff that in everyday life, when you can constantly put yourself in someone else's shoes and see things from a different perspective in life and in business and relationships, that stuff goes a long way, because not necessarily being liked by everyone, but understanding where people come from and being able to work with them and lead or whatever it is. I think the personable skills that I learned from that stuff and learning how to be some bigger or be a part of something bigger than myself, I think would be the biggest thing that I learned for sure.
Do you think golf helps that too? Like, do you think that even though you're not in a team sport but you're playing golf, that it's continuing to make you a better team person, or that kind of?
For sure. I think in some ways, golf in a lot of ways, it's a lot about self-reflection. And I think that helps you with other people too, because if you can self-reflect really well, you can probably kind of see where they're coming from.
Yeah, a little more empathy, right?
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure, right? And I think that helps me out a lot in the sense that I don't just think about myself and what I'm doing. I try and think about it from a bigger perspective now and how it affects people. So I think it definitely applies for sure.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's great stuff. Yeah, being a teammate's number one for me too.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
For coming
Appreciate
in.
it.
That's great stuff.
Having a conversation. It was that was a good one. I'm glad that
really
I eventually just opened that up so it
Yeah.
could be a little bit more natural. But yeah, thanks for coming in, dear.
Thanks
Having
for
a great
coming in,
conversation.
Thank
Dallas.
you guys. I actually really appreciate that, man. That's a good time.
No problem.
It's a good stuff here.
I think lots to take from a lot of the stuff that you said today, especially the fact of not actually going to school and still being able to transition. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
And I hope that everyone that goes down the same path can kind of, figure out what they want to do after, because I know it's a scary world out there.
Yeah.
And, if you can figure out something, everyone will figure out what they want to do. You just got to not settle for
I think
stuff.
one of the biggest things that I really enjoyed about that, about what you did after, was you went back to something you're very passionate about.
Yeah.
And that's what ultimately led you to have that opportunity that you have now.
100%. I think that's kind of always guided me a little bit, I've never lasted more than a month in a job I didn't like.
Yeah.
Straight up. I'm there, I'm kind of half checking in. I'm doing my best, but I'm my head's what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And so I just can't do that.
Well, and we were kind of lucky that we were both going through the same sort of transition together too.
Yeah, you were telling us.
Yeah, so it's nice to have someone that is going through it, just obviously to different degrees and whatever we deal with personally, but to understand kind of what that's like.
For sure.
If you didn't do it, it's a tough thing to understand, I think.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of lucky that way.
I've heard a lot of it's just a game. It's it wasn't, man.
No.
It was my life, right? And
Yeah.
it's kind of carved me out into who I am now, and the things that people like about me are definitely a product of being a high level athlete and
For
going
sure.
through those things and
Yeah.
just interacting with different people, trying to learn new skills, trying to do all of the work with the team, and then all that shit you got to do on your own to make yourself better too. And it's not just a game. It's still not just a game.
No.
for me,
Never
right?
will be.
It's
Right.
less of a game now than it was then, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Because you have perspective now
I
that
have
you
perspective.
stopped.
What it
Yeah.
gave me, what it did for me, and where it took my life
Yeah.
and where it led me.
That's the reason why I even started any of this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
passion,
That's why
right?
we're here
It's a
today.
passion.
Yeah.
It's all, and I'd rather sit around the table and talk sports for an hour than do pretty much anything else. You know? And so obviously we all love it, and like I said, there's something about almost being primal and really going out and putting yourself out there that you remember that stuff, and it's so exhilarating and exciting. You don't get that from paperwork. You know,
You don't. You
people don't get that.
You don't.
It's life is fun, but that stuff is really fun, and I miss it still. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, to conclude, that is episode 3 of the Tunnel Vision podcast. I also want to give a special shout out to Wells Chan, our video guy.
Hey.
He's behind the camera right now. He's been here for the first 3 episodes, so we'll make sure to tag him in a few of the things as well. So make sure you guys go follow him. Otherwise, I'm your host, Karam, alongside Adam and Kara. And appreciate you again, Dallas, for coming out.
Thanks for having me, guys. And lady.
And
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.